Ah, welcome to the world of Q&A. So especially welcome, more welcome than everybody else if you've already hit the like button and subscribed to the channel. But if you haven't, there's still time. It's Thursday. It's 9 o'clock in the UK. It's whatever time it is where you are, especially, I mean, if you're watching after the fact, I don't even know what the time is. I can't guess. But if you're here live right now, it's about 9 o'clock in the UK. So thank you for joining me. We're going to talk about some things again. Got loads to talk about today. Is that true? We normally manage. We'll find some things to talk about. Topics-wise, virtual reality might not be everybody's favourite thing, but it's one of my favourite things. So we're going to talk a bit about what... I'm still going to call them Facebook for the duration of the show. You can substitute the word Meta if you want, but we're going to talk about what Facebook / Oculus / Meta have been showing us this week. We're going to talk about what was on Phil Spencer's shelf. We're going to talk about... Okay, yeah, the background is clearly World of Warcraft. There might be a little bit of discussion on the current state of World of Warcraft, what Microsoft might do with it, and what people think of a console version. That's a maybe topic. We'll see how time goes. And a little bit of talk about choices in games and players having... it's not so much choices as games go along, but players having a say in the development of a game. Players having influence in what comes to a game. Specifically, clear example around Minecraft at the moment. But we'll get to that later. That's right at the end of the show. For now, a word from the sponsor. Yep. Now it's going to work. There we go. Sponsor is, as every week... Game On Daily, social news aggregation platform, loads of stuff on it, not many people on it, but they'll get there. Get on there if you haven't already. You betray me, it hurts my heart. Get on Game On Daily, it's a really good site that's only going to grow and get better and better. All of the gaming news, loads of people, loads of different creators and things, loads of content on there, so get there when you can. Don't read this out. I can't. I've already started to read it out. Welcome along, by the way. Painful Discourse, Peter Small and Ricardo. Isla's always here. Fems is here. Isla, I was running late, so if you sent me a promotional thing, please go and tweet it, and hopefully it'll get shared around in time. But yeah, I'm lousy. I'm lousy and ungrateful. I'm not actually ungrateful. I'm very grateful for what you've done, but my tweet about the show was terrible and rushed. And I can't possibly go and upload it now without ruining and taking down the whole stream. So, what has everyone been playing this week? Tired of the takes on the one thing. So glad that it's getting ignored. Ricardo, I consistently ignore it. There's always that little risk because I have bring your own topic. Anybody that comes along can bring any topic that they want. And we will discuss things to some degree if that happens. But yeah. Activision Blizzard is not high on my list of things I find interesting, so we'll see how that one goes. Takada's been playing Overwatch 2. I still haven't. I've dicked around in the what's it called, the little training area, just to see what the characters are like and see what's new. Found the answer to be nothing as far as I can tell. Nothing seems to be that new. I kind of want to play it, but I don't really. I don't know. I've not managed to get into a group that wants to play it with me, so. Overwatch 2 is something that it has some appeal. I think there's probably a good game in there that I would enjoy. But I don't want to queue and then play with strangers that rage at everything. So, how are you finding it, Ricardo? Better or worse than Overwatch 1? If you can separate those as games. Painful Discourse, you're back on Elden Ring. A big patch drop today. What has changed in this big patch? I've seen the news come through. I've seen that people have data mined the Elden Ring patch and started to suspect that the promised ray tracing may come along at some point, but I don't know what else has changed. Is it just like minor balancing things, fixing weapons and stuff like that? Femsy, you've been playing Luigi's Mansion 3. I'm not going to cringe at that. I really dislike Mario, but Luigi's fine by me. Luigi's fine. Like, Mario sucks, but Luigi, I mean, it's not my favourite character in the world, but there's more to Luigi than there is to Mario. For a start, he's green, so he's clearly not just designed to stand out from grass. And I've heard good things about Luigi's Mansion 3, so one of these days, when Nintendo give me a good way to play Nintendo Switch games, maybe I'll jump on that one as well. Assassin's Creed Valhalla for like 1 billion hours. Yeah, those are too intimidatingly huge for me. I've been playing on that, the intimidating size of the game. I'm still playing Horizon Forbidden West. And it's opened up now into its full open world, and it started layering on the boring Ubisoft style side missions as well as the good content. I'm already... It's wearing a little bit thin and I'm still kind of at the start of the game. It's a weird one because there's a good looking game in there, but the opening areas of Horizon Forbidden West, it took me a little while to put my finger on why it didn't look good. I'm running around going, yeah. There's a lot going on. It's reasonably polished. I don't like the vignetti in the corners. If you were here last week, then you'll know I'm saying that on purpose. I don't like the vignetti in the corners, but otherwise visually it should be quite nice. But what isn't quite clicking for me? And then I realised it's because all of the opening areas of that game are like, they're a brown hue that says this is like an arid, dried out clay, almost desert scape. And then you climb up about this high, like a little bit taller than me, maybe as high as a 2-story house. And there's snow everywhere. And it's just weird. The environment just doesn't make sense. And you can hear, there's like, oh, there's masses of storms. And you can hear these big storms in your PlayStation Tempest surround sound, but you look around and you can't see them. Where are these storms? What's going on? They sound intimidating. They sound like they'd be fun to run into the middle of. But I can't hear them. But story-wise, it's still, yeah, it's looking like it might play out. Might be interesting as it goes. The side quests that I've done so far have been reasonable. I'm gonna consciously object to and skip all of the stuff that I find boring. I'm not gonna collect every crappy thing in the game. Plow through the content, do the side quests. Hopefully I'll get through that in the next week or two. But I'd be quite satisfied if it was a lot smaller than it is. Yes, Chaos Anti, of course we're going to talk about VR. Of course we're going to talk about MetaQuest Pro and the general Facebook Meta Oculus presentation, what they showed and where they're going. And where that industry might be going. Because we love it. Charlie Hustle, welcome along. Not seen that name before. Not here anyway. Chivalry 2, Proteus, Overwatch 2 tutorial and training mode. So you've got as far in Overwatch 2 as me. I skipped the tutorial. I figured it would just be like the first game, but Proteus I played a little, spoke a little on last week. It's alright. It's alright. I'm not feeling particularly drawn to go back and finish it, but I do like the Splatoon blood. And Chivalry 2 I've also been playing. So Chivalry 2 is on my list of games that I've had a crack at this week. It's not a first time for me. So obviously Chivalry 2 came to Game Pass a week or two back. So a lot of people, they've publicly said that Game Pass brought in an extra 500,000 players, which is good. Oh, I have to talk and retweet while I'm here because I don't like that I didn't use this promotional video. I'm a bad person. So I'm going to look down here. I'm staring at what have I got? I'm staring at this block of cheese in front of me and finding this tweet so I can redo it. I've been playing Chivalry 2. I played it a little. I got it for free in the first place when it actually came out because it was packed in with I think AMD CPUs, and I happened to build a PC for someone else and I just swiped the code and kept it for myself. So I'd already played a little bit of Chivalry 2. It's funny as balls. It's an entertaining game. Let's bring up a trailer so you got something to look at. I think we did this last week as well, but it's another one. As I play it, it feels not pointless, but a little pointless. Like it's entertaining, it's slapstick, and it's funny. But you play quite a small part in the action, really. And there are different modes, and I'm jumping straight into the 64-player mode that warns you it's mostly just chaos, and it is just chaos, and it's really funny. Let's get this different trailer to last week just for variety. Here you go. Have some Chivalry 2. While I get back to this, my favourite moment. So as I'm learning Chivalry 2 controls, if you haven't played it, it's deliberately kind of cumbersome and awkward in a way that's entertaining. So it's physics driven, but not with the kind of sophistication that you'd get from Blade and Sorcery, because obviously you're using a controller in your hands. You don't have the joy of virtual reality and actually being there. But as controllers go, it's a physics driven sandbox. That is, the simple act of hitting someone effectively is fairly difficult. Because you have to swing the camera around and really you have to nail these big delayed hits and smash a target, and then you can cut their arms off and dismember them and headbutt them and all the rest of these things. But my very favourite moment in it, every time you get killed, you have the option of offering a commendation to the player that killed you, which I never do to anyone because they killed me. I'm not giving them any kind of commendation. I don't even normally know what's going on. It usually means I looked away from the screen or something. Or what am I talking about? I don't even die. I'm brilliant at games, so this is why I don't commend anyone when I die, because I don't. I'm too good at it. But I had a really nice little sequence where I ran up to a guy for a nice little one-on-one fight. Gave him a good slash with my halberd weapon, and then kicked him off a cliff, jumped after him with an overhead smash into his skull. And I was like, oh, I wish I was recording this, because now I feel like I'm actually playing well and doing cool things. And they gave me a commendation, and that was exciting. Wait, I'm almost there. I've almost done this tweet. RWK88 has joined us as always. Welcome along. Good to see you, as it is every week. Yeah, heads lopped off, arms flying, hilarity ensues. I saw Jez Corden put on Twitter some clips of him throwing his axe at people. I didn't even know you could throw the weapons. Right? That's how much of a noob I am. I think I've won every game that I've played, but I don't know why or how. KSNT is watching me right now on... Oh, you've got the Enroll Air, the little... See, this is the terminology that confuses me, and maybe you can explain if you can, because I've seen this this talk that it's an 80+ inch OLED screen. That means, how is it an OLED screen? What does that mean? It's not OLED unless, are the glasses OLED? I understand the scale and scope because it's essentially projecting it into your environment, but I'm very curious about those glasses. I see a lot of people saying, well, no, I don't see a lot of people. I see the marketing. I've seen the marketing for those glasses that says pretty much what you said there, and I'm not having a dig at you for doing the whole marketing repetition thing. You're saying what you're seeing, which is fine, but I am curious what you're seeing. How is it? This is just me, and I'm streaming at 1080p, so the resolution isn't a big concern, and me being on a cinema screen is probably the last thing that you need to be testing those glasses. But have you tried using them for games and things? Like, is it a screen that you'd actually use as a screen if you wanted to see any detail? Small tiny screens are OLED, so that's why they're calling it that, which is fine. Oh, so when you see it, it's projected, it duplicates those blacks and that vibrance. So they're not, the lenses themselves, the glasses, they're not transparent. It's not augmented reality in that sense. It's using camera pass-through and stuff, is it? Or is it like a transparent OLED that I don't fully understand? You're using it with your Steam Deck, and you're fancy pants with all the latest gadgets. I want all the latest gadgets too. I don't actually want a Steam Deck, but I want all the other ones. But you are living in the future and choosing to watch me. Isn't that weird? With a controller, it's the left and right bumpers to simultaneously to throw. So I've been playing a bit of keyboard and mouse instead. I've downloaded it on the Xbox as well with the intention of having a go on controller. But I don't know how much I'm going to play it because, like I say, it's got progression systems. This is back to Chivalry 2 now. If I'm losing things by hopping between topics. So Chivalry 2 has progression systems. You've got class stats that track. I think you can unlock different weapons and classes and things, but I kind of just enjoy the basic default fella that it's chucked me in as, and I'm having a good time like that. Winning and losing doesn't seem to be particularly down to how well I play. So I just jump on it for a bit of slapstick every now and again, which is fine. And if anybody wants to jump in for a bit of slapstick, then invite me sometime because I'll do some of that. It's projected down from the tiny screen at the top. It's interesting tech. So it is transparent lenses, but it projects. Weird. Well, let's one more game that I need to talk about. So this would be a really nice segue from these glasses into the things that MetaQuest, Oculus, Facebook, whatever, were showing at the weekend in the week. Where am I? It's Thursday. I'm on a chair. They showed that one of these weekdays. Okay, Santi, that's one more question for you on those glasses. How much were they, and do you recommend them to other people? Or, as with most technology, it's not usually as simple as a yes, no, I recommend it, or I don't. What circumstances, what kind of people would you recommend them for? The other game that I'm going to talk about really briefly, if you've been following closely on this channel, you will have seen I've also been playing Psychonauts 2, which is a 3D platform game, and I hate all 3D platform games, which isn't strictly true because there are a small handful of 3D platform games that I do like. Psychonauts 2 is one of them. I'm having a good time with that. I don't like the platform sections, which sounds kind of... there's a good word for this, and it's just evading me entirely. It's leaked out of my left ear, but it's counter something or other. I don't enjoy the platforming sections of this platforming game, but I do like this platforming game. And it's... if you've played it, then you already know The characters, the story, the way that it tackles its subject matter, both seriously and with humor at the same time, is quite compelling. It looks much better than I expected. I knew it was a colourful game, but I didn't think it was a technical showcase. But I'm playing it on the Series X, which is the way that you should play Psychonauts 2. It's the only platform that has all the HDR bells and whistles and things. So I'm playing it there. Looks nice, really creative worlds, really well told little bits of story and things. Terrible platforming. Nobody should play platform games, I don't understand, but it's a good game. So Psychonauts 2, highly recommended by me that doesn't like that kind of game. Too pricey with the highest end Steam model. So that's Kratos, that's the Steam Deck, which, yeah, some people love it. Some people have no use for it. I personally have no use for it. I don't play portable games, and the Steam Deck isn't worth plugging into a TV for me when I've already got big hardware plugged into the TV. But the glasses I'm more curious about in terms of recommendations. I don't know anybody else that's got them. Depends on your use case. So KSNT got the glasses for $350. If they were $199, you'd say it's a no-brainer. Any device that can pass power and video can use this. It's pretty amazing. That's the other thing. Does it have like a base station? Compassionate choice. Big Acer dog. What's going on? Welcome along. I'm not often referred to as a dog, but I'll take it. We're just having a little chat as usual on a Thursday about what we're playing, what we're doing, and we've had some interesting talk about some technology that I'm not familiar with, that I have not sampled, that I am curious about. And let's take that segue. Let's move into these augmented reality glasses that KSNT is using, and we'll talk about the Meta Quest Pro. And I guess first and foremost, the standout point that most people come to is the price, because it's really expensive, right? It's $1,500 or something, probably. I've not looked at the UK price. That's not true. I went straight onto the pre-order page and looked at the price. USB-C. So do you have to? Again, I'm jumping back. So KSNT just answered my little question there. The glasses that he's using are powered by or get their signal via USB-C. Does it plug directly into the glasses then? So you have to have a USB-C cable in your head for any content that you want to use. That kind of, I don't like wires on VR headsets, and it's a similar thing that would make it somewhat less convenient for a lot of use cases. No, I must. If I wanted to play a PlayStation 5 on that, it's not going to get USB-C directly out of the PlayStation 5, so HDMI must be in that chain somewhere. How does it work? You can use it with an Android phone or an iPhone with an adapter as well. Fair enough. Have you missed the weekly Nintendo section? We spoke a little bit about my love for Luigi relative to Mario. So you could say you've missed the Nintendo section, I'm afraid, yeah, because it's not likely to come back up again. Which isn't true, because we have a whole bring your own topics thing going on. So if people want to talk Nintendo and want to throw some Nintendo questions at me, of course I'll take those, of course. My drink is Bailey's with a hint of coffee. Same as last week. It is moderately lukewarm, but delicious enough that it doesn't matter. It can go cold and I still drink it, and it's just become a coffee flavoured Bailey's, which is delicious. So, Meta, Facebook Oculus Quest Pro. Prior to the event, I'm going to call them Facebook. It's too confusing. I don't like the term Meta, or the company name, or the rebranding. I don't like Facebook either, but I think it's helpful to remember that it is Facebook that we're talking about, and everything that people hate about Facebook does apply. So Facebook, prior to the event, had warned people that the Quest Pro was not really a gaming device. It was more of a professional device, hence the name. It is a Quest Pro, and they'd warned that it was probably going to be a fair amount more than $800 when it came to pricing. They have not used the branding Meta. Oh, they've not earned it. I think we'll come back to that, KSNT, because there's some other stuff other bits of discussion around what they've earned and what they're doing. That is actually quite interesting. So I'll look back onto what they've earned in a minute. But they pre-warned people it's a professional device. It's going to cost way more than $800, and it does. It's like $1,500, which, I mean, the Quest 2 used to be $300. It got raised by $100. So the Quest 2 is $400. The Quest Pro it's better in some ways. If you are playing it as a gamer and you had no other differentiator, like the price was the same and you were picking between those two headsets, there are definite advantages to the Quest Pro. Namely the images. It's a slightly higher resolution, it's got significantly better lenses, and it's got, or it should have, pretty much perfect tracking in the controllers. So rather than controllers that you can lose if they get out of sight of your cameras and things, the controllers themselves have their own cameras and handle their own tracking. So you should be able to move any way you like and never lose tracking, which is a good thing. It's a thing that a lot of people like about the Valve Index and outside-in tracking that they have. So you can get, for your money, better visuals, but not night and day better. They're a bit better visuals. It's the chipset that it's using is the same. It's a new chipset, but I'm blabbering and going all over the place. Let's forget the chipset. We'll come back to that again. Better visuals, but these are better visuals on Quest 2 games. So it's not going to have a new catalogue of games. This is where the chipset is relevant. The hardware inside this thing is powerful enough that it can run Quest 2 content at that slightly higher level, but it's not going to be delivering whole new experiences. It's the same kind of games. You've got better tracking, and you've got better augmented reality. So a big feature that people don't really care about at the moment in the gaming space is that you can use them as augmented reality glasses. So if you think back to Microsoft's HoloLens and things like that, the concept of sticking these things on, having those transparent lenses like the glasses that I was asking about for KSNT, seeing the world around you and being able to project things into it using augmented reality. The Quest Pro is not strictly that, because it's using a feed, it's using its cameras to capture the world around you and relay them back through to your headset. But the experience, the idea of it, is that you can stick this headset on, you can still see the world around you, you can still see your hands, you can still see the people in the room, and you can project things into it. Professional uses I don't want to focus on too much because I don't care about professional uses. Gaming uses, for me, I've always said I prefer virtual reality. Like, the potential of virtual reality is more exciting than the potential of augmented reality by and large, because I prefer to put myself into a different world rather than have bits and pieces appear in front of me. But there are examples, like when Minecraft was shown with HoloLens. So Microsoft demoed gaming on HoloLens, and they used Minecraft, saying, look what you can do. You can build worlds within the world. You can put you can build a castle on top of this table and things. That would be a fine example of augmented reality. That's not a thing that's available or a thing that's happening as far as I know. The only one that they showed, I think, well, they showed two. They showed Beat Saber, which looked like an inferior way of playing Beat Saber, but a nice safe way of playing Beat Saber. So you smack all your blocks around, but you're in the real world instead of Beat Saber's usual black environment or colourful synth environment. And they showed Demio, which is like a Dungeons and Dragons kind of thing. So you can pull up a table in front of you. At the moment, the game's already out. It's been out for a year. It's got a pancake version as well. It's got crossplay and all the rest of it. But if you're playing it in the MetaQuest Pro, you can pull up the table, position it in the real world in front of you, see the other people that are playing it in your room, and chill out like that, which to me is a nice use of it, particularly if you had considered this technology like 2 years ago when people were locked in their houses and couldn't go and see people. It would have been like fairly epic to be able to sit around and play games as if they were there, more or less. And the other features that it's got that make it stand out, and I will come back to these chat messages in a second. Oh, especially that. There's a particular one there that I've just seen. The other thing that it adds, which you can scoff at or not, it's again, it's not really centered around gaming as such, but is centered around social connections with other people, is it's using eye tracking and face and mouth tracking to be able to add expressions, facial expressions to a character that you're using. So PlayStation VR has eye tracking. The new one, PlayStation VR 2, has eye tracking, and we'll use it to give an avatar more realistic eyes and movements so you can see where they're looking. But the Meta Quest Pro takes the whole face, and Facebook, Meta, whatever, demonstrated this with their own metaverse avatars, which if you saw Mark Zuckerberg in avatar form, you'll know that those aren't particularly great. But for me, as someone that wants to stream from VR, the potential of having an emotive avatar that I can show to people rather than just me with a big thing over my face is quite appealing. So for me, I kind of want the Meta Quest 2 for that reason. Let me catch up on your comments on it, because I'm going to get too far behind on those afterwards. So no, the birthday girl wanted to go clubbing. I've missed something entirely there. Something soggy and moist. Good to know. Don't know what's happening. I should have kept up better. There's some very unusual chat. If you're watching it after the fact, put up the live chat replay and catch up on this for yourself, because I've got no freaking idea what's going on there. So Chaos Anti, now we're talking. This is stuff I understand. So that's the thing. Upload VR's hands-on isn't as glowing. What have Upload VR said about it? Oh, the tracking. Are you talking about? The tracking isn't as glowing. That would be disappointing, because that's a big part of the expense of the device, is the fact that both controllers are little computers in themselves, tracking where they go and doing what they want. Peter Morland, you're going to get drenched in beer tomorrow evening. You haven't had a beer for 2 weeks. Good. Not good, like whichever way you want to look at it. Good you haven't had one for 2 weeks. That sounds good, wholesome and healthy. And good that you're going to go have some tomorrow, because it sounds like you're going to have a good time. So good. It was alcohol. Don't know why you're wondering. It was a game where you could collect slices of cake for health or get a trophy called Piece of Cake. Then we're back to soggy bottoms and things. Okay, cool. You're talking about Portal. KY, I am not becoming a VTuber per se, but I do like to stream virtual reality. So, which is difficult. So I do pancake streaming, I do virtual reality streaming, and pancake streaming, I can sit like I am now with my cheese table in front of me, and I can look at the camera, and it's like you get a nicer connection with the audience. VR streaming, I can play VR, which I love, and VR lends itself to chaos, which suits my style very well. So my VR streams usually have all kinds of ridiculous things going on that hopefully are fairly entertaining, but you lose me from it to a degree. I can talk to you, I can read your chat, but you can't see how I'm reacting. So if I'm playing a horror game and I've got my eyes closed, you'd never know that I had my eyes closed. You'd think I was experiencing it fully. Yeah. In theory, and it's not simple because Meta Quest Pro, whatever it is a standalone device, not a PC VR device. But in theory, if the avatars can come across in a way that I can stream them, then you could see me close my eyes in terror, and it will be more entertaining for everyone. Virtual cat ears, I will not. Maybe I will. No, I will not. You can see how excited by the running and slashing and giggling. Yes. But it would be better. It would be worthwhile to me to be able to present my face in some way, to be able to do those. Not like $1,500 worthwhile, but worthwhile. KSanti is saying that there are reports that the tracking of those controllers, even though they entirely track themselves and should be perfect, reports from Upload VR are that they're not working as intended. I'll be surprised if they don't fix that very quickly. But other things that they've shown. So it's important to note that Meta Quest Pro, the name of it's stupid. Why do they have to rename their company? The Facebook Pro headset is another standalone headset. Quest 1 was a standalone headset that was pretty successful. Quest 2 was very successful as a standalone headset, and insofar as virtual reality goes, where nothing is that successful, but they've sold 10 or 15 million of those before they put the price up. Quest Pro is not the sequel to those devices. Quest 3 will be due next year and may do very well for itself as well. But for me, it's really disappointing that Oculus, Meta, Facebook have completely abandoned the PC side of virtual reality. So you can split virtual reality into some pretty distinct camps now, where you've got Meta and some other competitors like Pico are doing these standalone devices where they strap the hardware to your face and all you need is that headset. You put it on, you're wireless, you're free, you go and play some games, but you're playing with essentially a mobile chipset. You've got PC VR where you can have unlimited power, but it's not accessible. It's never going to be mainstream because people just don't. It's too much. You have to have a whole PC, you have to have a headset, and then you have to figure out how to do it wirelessly if you want a good experience and all the rest of it. Quest 3 special launch price $3,000. And no, Quest 3 will be targeted at people rather than businesses. So I'm sure it'll be a lot cheaper than the Pro. But those are the mainstays for virtual reality at the moment. And obviously you've got PlayStation VR 2 on the horizon early next year, March next year, whenever it's due. That is somewhere between the two in that it's more accessible than PC gaming, more powerful than chipset gaming, and somewhere in between. But for me, the Quest as a standalone headset, when they introduced it, made so much sense and was so impressive. And the Quest 2 deserved all of its success. But personally, I really want Meta to look at the current landscape and say, hey, those devices made sense a year or two ago. But in the meantime, we've figured out wireless streaming. So we no longer need to strap a mobile chipset to your face. There is no need for the device to be literally all in one anymore. We could give you essentially a console. We could give you a box. We could strap some hardware over there, have it in the same room as your Quest headset, and you're good to go. And that's what I would like to see, because chipsets are going to get better, but it just seems an unnecessary ceiling on what they can do for me. Don't know why they insist on strapping all the headset to your face still when they don't need to anymore. And that's kind of what PlayStation VR 2 is. It's a little bit more complicated because obviously people are buying their PlayStation 5s to use as a PlayStation 5. It's not a dedicated VR box per se, but it can fit that niche quite nicely. In terms of what the Quest Pro does relative to the PlayStation VR 2, the PlayStation VR 2 will be better in most ways than the Quest Pro, with the very significant exception that it's not wireless, which is, I really hope that PlayStation VR gets a wireless thing in the meantime. Sounds like you have to upgrade VR kit quite often. It's an expensive hobby. Well, Peter, the thing with that Quest Pro, though, is it runs Quest 2 software, so you don't have to upgrade, and it's not intended that you upgrade. So if you bought a Quest 2 when it came out 2 years ago or whatever, that's still good for quite a while, especially as it's like a $300 device. So it's at a point where in the console space, like if you're looking at PlayStation and Xbox and things, they're still figuring out their update sequences, but you don't want it to come out too quick because we've got already fairly significant diminishing returns. Like the next PlayStation and the next Xbox are likely to play things in a pretty similar way to the ones that we do now. The PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One were very similar to the generation before. Virtual reality is not in that space. Virtual reality is very new, and the advancements that they're making are massive. So like PlayStation VR 1 is a terrible bit of kit now, and it's had like a console lifespan, but it's so far behind where it needs to be a good experience. So virtual reality, by necessity, because it is so young, should advance quickly. You need hardware to keep on coming out for that to happen. It is an expensive hobby. It's definitely not a mainstream casual thing, but that's how things start out, right? So that's okay. That's okay. And eventually, when they figure everything out, they'll be able to stabilize that a little more and give us things that last longer and cost less. In this future, Sony's offerings are primed to be the best experience for the masses. The masses is a term I try and avoid. I agree with you, KSanti, apart from the whole, that wire is a problem for me. But Sony are well positioned to deliver. Best is the wrong word, but very good VR in a way that people that want it can go and do. There are barriers in PC VR where even if you want it, you might not be able to have it because it does require some tinkering. PlayStation VR 2 will require very little tinkering or just require an appetite and a bit of money, and you'll go and get a good, consistent experience. What games are worth playing on VR at the moment? It seems like such little content. So I will absolutely come out and say that there's not enough. VR content, I think, was in a healthier place a couple of years ago when people were unsure how successful it will be and unsure how it would explode. So there were a lot of games coming out, a lot of experimental stuff and a lot of crap, but there was a lot coming out. And it's dried up an awful lot. There's not much new, which isn't to condemn it entirely. So for me, I could sit in the racing games that I've got and in Skyrim and in Half-Life Alyx and all of those kind of things pretty much forever. But if I'm looking on the horizon for something new to come along, the industry needs PlayStation to do that at the moment because nobody else is. Hopefully Valve are kicking around doing something. You've got a couple of outstanding exceptions. So End Dreams, Servios, and what are they called? The ones that are doing the Saints and Sinners game. Anyway, there's a handful of studios that are still pushing it and putting out proper content, but nowhere near enough, which is why virtual reality could really use the injection of content that Sony are hopefully going to give it. This is where it's also a little galling that Meta, Facebook, Oculus have dismissed high-end VR. So they announced, they talked about a few games, but they announced, for example, the Iron Man VR. So Iron Man VR came out on PlayStation VR 2 or 3 years ago. Oculus have bought the studio that makes it. They bought a few studios that make VR games. And they're making more VR games, but they are exclusively making them for the Quest 2 chipset now. So it's not like when they published like Medal of Honor, they were still kind of split. They released the Rift S and the Quest 2 at about the same time. And they made games to fit both. So they tried to scale them to give you a high-end PC experience, but also a standalone mobile experience. And they've stopped doing that entirely now. They've walked away from the PC space. So gems like Stormlands and Asgard's Wrath and things like that they made and published and put a load of money into, those don't happen anymore from Oculus. Now they are entirely focused on the mobile chipset. PlayStation, Valve, Servios. So Servios they've made like 10 different VR games. They've made some reasonably high profile ones, but their next one is an Aliens game. So they've gone for a split. It will be available for pancake gamers and for virtual reality, but they make proper VR games and it should be good. End Dreams are making a Ghostbusters game for PlayStation VR 2. To this day, Lone Echo is still the best experience to date for you. I mean, there were some good games. VR's had some good games along the way. Insomniac make good VR games. They made a few. One that wasn't very good, but some good games. And obviously Sony own them now, so hopefully that's more content coming that way. Do I anticipate Sony's big first-party games will have a VR option, or will they be pancake only? So far, Sony's initial showing for PlayStation VR 2 has been disappointing for me. As in their flagship title, their kind of marquee tentpole offering is that Horizon Call of the Mountain. I think Sony are terrified of making people sick. So I really hope that pretty much everything they make offers like full-on VR support. I really hope that Microsoft wake up and let me have Starfield in virtual reality, as well as the obvious ones like Forza and things like that. But I don't know what they're going to do. I think PlayStation VR, the first generation of it, alongside all of the mobile virtual reality headsets that were out at the time, are a big reason why so many people won't touch virtual reality, because they tried it and it made them sick. So I think we're going to have a very safe 1 or 2 years from Sony putting out things that give you very limited control. But hopefully, I mean, they are going to take it seriously. They've put so much money into it. I still think the PlayStation 5 is pretty much built for VR. Like, obviously it's a console game and it's giving you pancake games, but the features of the DualSense and things like that, and the positional sound, all of the things that they focused on, these are VR technologies that they've retrofitted to pancake games. So Sony are very, very serious about it, and I hope that they do deliver lots of content, but they're also very, very serious about their pockets, and lots of VR content isn't going to make them lots and lots of money right now, so we'll see them play it safe for a little while. Right, I rambled there anyway. So what else is there? So that's probably enough for Meta Quest Pro, unless anybody has any input on it. I will say, actually, very quickly, you don't like the VR talk. Some people here are here for the VR talk, but I know that it's a subject that turns a lot of people away. but I love it. And then let's talk about Mark Zuckerberg's avatars. I was going to do a poster for Ready Player One that had all of the avatars from Ready Player One, but put these really cringy Mark Zuckerberg avatar grins and eyebrows on all of them. The metaverse isn't going to work by making everybody creepy smile. I'm an endgame boss in World of Warcraft waiting to be slayed. No, I'm sitting at a cheese table in World of Warcraft waiting to eat cheese and whatever I've got here. Blah, 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 blah. Welcome, Mav. Good to see you along as well. So, Microsoft's presence at this Meta event will also segue into our next little topic as well, so we'll talk about them. Microsoft showed up, Satya Nadella was there, and they were having a cringy little remote chat about partnership between Meta and Microsoft, which is, you can see how it's very, very important for Meta if they want to push a pro device, a business device, and they want people doing their spreadsheets and collaborating on Teams and whatever. I understand the collaboration there, but they pulled Microsoft in to talk about VR, and they did give us a little morsel of gaming that nobody bloody wants, bastards. Cloud streaming, Xbox cloud streaming, you'll be able to do in a Quest 2 or a Quest Pro, which is to say it's not Xbox supporting virtual reality. It's kind of like KS Anti's fake screen glasses. You stick on your Oculus headset, you'll pull up a pretend screen in front of you, and you'll play Xbox through cloud streaming, which is very, very similar to Microsoft and Oculus when Oculus had a partnership. The very first consumer edition of the Oculus CV1, it was called, Oculus Consumer Version 1, shipped before the controllers were ready, so it came with a packed-in Xbox One controller. And that came with an Xbox app, so if you had an Xbox in your house, you could stream games to a fake screen and play Xbox games on it. They're essentially doing that again, but this time using cloud streaming, because that's obviously technology that they're pushing. It's there, it's available, and it makes a lot of sense. But also meh. It's going to be inferior to having an Xbox that you play on a TV in front of you. The only exception that I could say for me, being that I'm not a mobile phone gamer and I don't do much remotely, the only time that I would use Microsoft's cloud streaming thing is if it was a choice between playing in a headset with a fake TV or playing on a phone. So if I'm staying in a hotel or something like that and they happen to have a good enough connection for cloud streaming, then playing in a Quest would probably be better than playing on a little phone. Besides that, though, it's not an announcement that I care for. And that's literally what you can do now in Quest 2, put in the browser. Yeah, that's the other thing, KSNT. You can already, virtual reality supports browsers, so you could already just log onto it and play from there. It's just a slightly more convenient mechanism to launch it, I guess. Oh boy, the PlayStation VR 2 is going to be expensive. See, I still maintain that the PlayStation VR 2 was intended to be $400, and it won't be because pressures. So I don't think it'll be a lot more than 500, but I do think the market has got away from them. So when I look at the PlayStation VR 2, the technology in it is really impressive, but they've also cut out as much as they can. They've trimmed as much fat as they can. The thing doesn't even have speakers. It's not wireless. They've cut as much cost as they can. They're not aiming for the kind of price that this Quest Pro is. But I don't think they can hit the price that they wanted to. Sony, when they make hardware, ever since the PlayStation 4, they set a price in mind and they aim towards it, and that served them well for many years until now, when they've had to raise the price of the PlayStation 5. And I think we're getting a rise on the price of PlayStation VR 2 before it's even launched. So we're never going to see the price that it was intended for. It'll be packed in egg boxes, absolutely. Save all that money. Buy your own headset, buy your own wireless if they ever do that, which they might not, but I sincerely hope they do. I think they have emphasized the right places to lavish it, like the screens and all the rest of it, the controllers. These are important things if they want to deliver a good VR experience, but they've cut away anything that they can afford to cut away. So I don't think it's going to be massively expensive, but I also don't think it's going to be massively cheap, because they can't. Just like Quest, the Quest 2 had to go up $100. I'd be very surprised if PlayStation VR 2 hasn't internally gone up $100, much to... The cheese looks good. Well, if it looked good, I would have eaten more of it, you know? It looks like bad cheese because it's untouched. It's just been sliced and left there. But besides that, yeah. Still, PlayStation VR 2 at $500 or $600 or whatever it ends up being, I still want that. I still want to play those games. I still want that HDR screen and nice high resolution and haptic feedback on the controllers and all of those kinds of things. PlayStation raised the price while cutting the production costs. Yeah. But did they? Because yes, they cut the material cost must be lower, but we don't know what they have to pay AMD in a competitive market. So I would say they probably didn't actually cut the cost. I understand that it should be cheaper through smaller components, more reliable wafers and all the rest of it, less of less heatsink materials and all of that stuff. But then you all had, like, 4 months ago, you had all these stories about how Xbox was locking up the market and paying for chip priority. Like, if Sony wanted chips, they probably had to pay for them. So but yeah, that's I can't imagine they wanted to raise the price of those things. It's also, they seem to be selling pretty well at the moment, so who knows? Who knows? I'm not defending the price rise or anything like that. I just don't think it's as simple as their costs went down yet their price went up. I suspect their costs did force their hand to a degree. And I say force their hand, obviously somehow their hand managed to stay exactly where it was in America, so not entirely sympathetic to what they're doing. PlayStation is the more popular console at the moment. They can get away with price rises. If it was about what they can get away with, though, I mean, as a business, if they're going to sell everything, logically they should sell it for as much as they can, right? Because that's what they're there for, to make money. So partly, yeah, they've sat there for a year or two watching scalpers sell their own product for more than they were selling it for. And I'm sure there is an element of we can make more money, so we're going to. Sucks, huh? Sucks. There's talk of Sony increasing production by 400% for the increase. Yeah, I don't know. So I've heard Sony are targeting something like 30 million consoles next year. Hey, now on the America point, this is KSNT. We only get Horizon Forbidden West bundles for $550, even if you own the game already. That's a price hike of sorts. Yeah. But what's weird though, KSNT, is that they didn't do that across the world. First thing I thought when they did announce the price rise was like, no, you've got to disguise that. You can't raise the price. You could bundle in a game and raise the price like that, but raising the recommended retail price is, that's going to make bad news. And of course it did. So why they would do different in America to the rest, I don't know. I don't know. The bundle makes sense to disguise a price increase, but... meh. Right. Let's talk about cloud streaming some more, though. So we talked about cloud streaming with within a Quest headset, or probably many other technologies. Phil Spencer, accidentally on purpose, gave us a little glimpse of what has been dubbed Xbox Keystone. So the long-awaited streaming stick, essentially, which is no secret. It's not been a secret. We've known that it's coming for years. But extending the reach of Xbox Cloud Streaming. So you've got smart TVs from Samsung and LG and whatever that have Xbox Cloud Streaming built in. So you get your TV, you can just browse to it and start playing games. Much like Roku sticks and Fire sticks and all of these kind of things, there needs to be an alternative for people that don't have the smart TV, that don't have the TV that supports these things, and that is where Xbox Keystone comes in. It is kind of a surprise that this thing hasn't come out already. It hasn't been around for ages, but it hasn't. It's not there yet. And the during the week, days are so confusing. Today is Thursday. It didn't happen today. One of the other days in the week, Phil Spencer showed a nice little picture of his shelf to celebrate Fallout, the 25th anniversary of the Fallout games. And accidentally on purpose on the top shelf, like right in the center, was a little device that looked a lot like an Xbox Series S, but a lot smaller. How the hell did they mess it up? It's ridiculous. Oh, Stadia. So FMZ, Stadia is a conversation we've already had, but it's gone. It's in the past. You have to forget it. Stadia is dead. So, little pretend Xbox Series S that very quickly was identified as that must be the streaming stick. Like, there it is. What do we think of it? Is this appealing to anybody here? Does anybody want this device for, I don't know, an additional screen in the house or whatever else? Obviously, we don't fully know its capabilities yet. We've just seen it there. We know that it's coming. We don't know that it can stream any better than any other solution that you've got in browser or whatever else. We don't know if there's anything secret packed into it, and we don't know the price of it. And we don't know if it can stream purely from the cloud, or if you could stream from another Xbox in your house or whatever else you can do there. But it's coming, and we'll think of it for now, for simplicity, it's just your equivalent of a Roku stick, Fire Stick, whatever, cloud streaming device. Plug it into your TV, get an Xbox controller that presumably ships with it, stream your Xbox games, away you go. With 2 Xboxes already, you're not their target audience. Well, that's, yeah, I mean, that's fine. KSNC, 2 of these will most likely end up in your kids' rooms. They've been asking you for a gaming box in their rooms. Do you not have some spare old Xboxes that you could chuck in their room instead? Like an Xbox One or whatever. It'll be interesting to see how smart or dumb an Xbox streaming stick is. Will it be able to analyze all TVs and give the best performance for the screen? As in, do you mean in the way that, like, an Xbox Series S or X will, or even the old Xboxes will tell you it supports Dolby Vision or HDR or what frame rates it supports and things like that? So there were rumors a year or two back that Keystone was going to offer 4K HDR streaming beyond anything that xCloud currently does. xCloud is still way behind where Stadia was in terms of the quality that they can stream at. It's still 1080p, 60 frames per second. For some reason, they don't even stream Dolby Atmos audio at the moment. So there's room for improvement there, independent and like completely independent of the streaming device, the Keystone, whatever. Not the lowest common denominator. Oh, so Peter, it'll be interesting. Yeah, so FMZ, you can see it work if the streaming apps included, like Netflix. That'll be a great buy with cloud gaming. I'm not sure that their intent is to partner with anybody else and include other streaming apps, but maybe it would make sense. I don't know how prevalent non-smart TVs are. I don't know how prevalent, like, I don't know, some people use their consoles to watch Netflix and things like that, don't they, rather than their smart TV, so there probably is an audience. Heck no, you love your Xboxes. Once they're retired, you keep them around for emulation and running Linux, so you're not letting your children have them. Fair enough. Idiot box, be nice. I've seen some of the Xbox fans around Twitter, and I understand why you would say that, but there are good people that have them. Can you still share Xbox Gold? Well, the Xbox family plan will be around in no time, so you shouldn't need to share Gold anymore. You can still... You mean, could you set a streaming stick, a Keystone, as your home console or whatever? I see. My thoughts on the streaming device. Gold should be irrelevant because you'd need Game Pass Ultimate anyway to be able to use the streaming tier of things. Price-wise, let's see your guesses for price. How much do you think Xbox Keystone streaming stick device is going to cost? Don't put a target on your back. Don't worry, they're harmless. Oh, and there's a topic that I didn't have that's been going around on the social medias. The whole Game Pass money profitability thing. We'll come on to that soon. Kratos $200 with a controller. Peter, more than 50 monies with the controller, Peter, or I have to buy that separately? And with free Game Pass for 3 months. See, my thoughts on the price of it. If I had to guess, I think you're pretty much on the money there. I think if you were to buy it standalone, then you'd be looking at $100 with a controller. I think its biggest pitch will be the Xbox All Access program. So at the moment, I think it's only available in the US and the UK, but Xbox All Access lets you get a Series S or a Series X for a subscription price that includes Game Pass. And then you subscribe for 2 years, and at the end of it, you own the device. So my thoughts on the Keystone streaming stick are that it will be a bottom tier of Xbox All Access, where it's essentially free, where you pay for 2 years of Game Pass Ultimate, and it comes with the device. I think, yeah, literally free. That's my gamble of a guess. I don't think they'll charge anything above for it. Unless, like, that's not to say that they won't sell it separately. There are plenty of territories where you can't get Xbox All Access. So it will be sold separately, and that's where I think probably $100 with 2 or 3 months of Game Pass and a controller. But All Access is the one for the US. Although then the family plan comes along and confuses things a little, doesn't it? I wonder how the family plan will impact All Access. Haven't thought that through. They need a low-cost option for the casual user to have a go. Yeah, I still think... I don't think this device is going to be hugely successful or anything like that. I think for cloud streaming to really hit a market, the key to that is that it needs to exist on the devices that you already own. So the way that it is going to get into people's houses is going to be through the apps embedded onto phones and TVs, more so than your Logitech G Clouds and your dedicated streaming sticks and things like that. But options are options. So additional... Microsoft's approach is clearly like the more on-ramps, the more ways that people can get access to this content, the better. Even if every single one of them isn't massively successful. I mean, the streaming within a Quest headset isn't going to be massively successful at all. But it's an on-ramp. They're making it as easy as possible for as many people as possible to find a way to play games and go from there. So it's not going to do them any harm having this thing on the market. It's also not the Keystone that its name would imply. You can probably find a bundle with a controller or without a controller, and you better even support a DualSense controller. Controversial. Yeah, controllers, I mean, I'm surprised. I don't think that you get a controller in like your Samsung or LG TVs at the moment, which is a surprise. I'm surprised they're not packed in already. I'm sure that's coming soon. But let's talk about the money side of it. Game Pass, right? Compassionate choice. I'm just going to look back to this. It's just another way to get in the ecosystem for dirt cheap with a relatively good experience. Yeah, who likes cloud gaming? Who's used it and thinks it's good enough to use? I'm sure, given that this is the most hardcore of hardcore channels where we run around on treadmills in virtual reality, but who's actually played around with various cloud streaming services? What do you think of them? How close are they to like an acceptable experience for you and for other people that you know? That's like an open question on the current state of cloud gaming. And while you're looking and thinking on that one and answering how you want to, phone as a controller, blah, blah, Peter, blah, you made me sick in my mouth. With your internet, it's not ideal. You've heard good things for good internet. Cloud gaming's okay when you play it on your Surface 3. Yeah, I find I've not used all of them. Of course, I've not got time to use all of them. I've used Stadia a little. I've used the Xbox Cloud one a little. I'm not sure it'll ever be there for me, but I'm not the audience for it. I'm always going to want native hardware. I'm quite sensitive to compression artifacts and things like that. I say always. Obviously, technology is going to advance, and my eyesight's going to get worse. So maybe one day I'll just settle and play like that. But I say this when I say that it's not for me. I say it with an appreciation that I think it is probably good enough for most people. In much the same way that Netflix is good enough for most people. Personally, I'd rather watch a 4K Blu-ray disc rather than a film on Netflix. Like, I would notice the quality degradation on Netflix, but for the vast majority of people sitting in their living room, Netflix is good enough. Cloud streaming is getting that way. I think it is good enough for most people. You played Forza Horizon 5 and it plays pretty good, But will you use it over your Series X? Not really. No, it would be strange to use it over local hardware if you've got it available. But plays pretty good, right? So people that don't have a Series X, it's probably a good way to jump on and give it a go. Does anybody use it to try things? So if you've got an Xbox Series X at the moment and you're browsing around your Game Pass or whatever, you've got the option to download a game, or you can just go straight in and stream it. Does anybody play anything using that streaming option because you just can't be asked to install it? Either to try or to do a little bit. See above, Peter Molland, I can see above. You said on your kit you would push... Wait, on your kit you would, at a push, use cloud to play a non-action game. Fair. Charlie Hustle, you use the try it, and do you try it just to see if you like the game and then go and download it, or do you try it and go, oh, this is fun, I'm going to keep playing? Compassionate Choice, for example, you were playing Battlefield 5 with your buddy. He installed it on his One X and was lagging, so he uninstalled it, and on cloud it played flawlessly. There's a question, actually. So this one's a little bit more nuanced, a little bit more complicated. So say you've got, hypothetical, this isn't a thing that's available right now. You've got your Series X in front of you and you want to play Cyberpunk, right? So you go onto your Series X and you've got Cyberpunk 2077, and your choices, again, this isn't now, but hypothetically, your choices are you can install Cyberpunk 2077 natively on your Series X, or you can stream the high-end PC version with overdrive ray tracing. Because you don't have the hardware limitations. This is, in theory, this is a big advantage of cloud gaming over local hardware, is you can have unlimited power in the cloud. Unlimited power, like the way that Microsoft presented it and were mocked for it. But theoretically, you could have unlimited power in the cloud. You could have 17 Xbox Series X holding hands, clubbing together to path trace all the lighting in Cyberpunk. Would you then cloud stream for the better visuals, or would you stick to the native hardware for the better response and lack of compression artifacts? Because I would find that a difficult choice. As a person that I mean, I've already said how I feel about cloud streaming, but I think if you have a cloud experience, and Cyberpunk's it's the example that I use because it's a real game that has quite a disparity between the PC and the console version, but theoretically, cloud gaming should be able to offer more than console gaming in some areas. And at that point, if any developers go out, and it could be, so Hideo Kojima is supposed to be doing a cloud native game with Xbox, and they've got a whole team dedicated to cloud native games. And I say, as someone who doesn't feel that cloud gaming is for me, cloud native games are really exciting. I can forget compression artifacts if they are using that remote technology to give me a game that's not possible on the hardware that I've got at home. That's a completely different conversation. And there's limits commercially, but there's not really limits in a technology perspective to make that impossible. They should be able to make games that run in the cloud better than you can run them at home, delivering something entirely new, bigger in scope, bigger in physics, bigger in all the rest of it. And they should be able to deliver that streamed to your console. The area where that gets really confusing is the area that I still say was Crackdown 3's undoing. And that's the commercial element. Our Xbox Live Gold and our Game Pass subscription doesn't get you that much dedicated compute. So the only way that these things are going to work is very much shared resource. It's going to be big projects that have lots of people accessing this massive game and streaming it, rather than the Crackdown 3 dream scenario they presented, where every player goes on and gets 17 servers running a city for them to destroy. That wasn't commercially viable. It was technically viable. They could have done it, like all the tech demos that they showed for Crackdown 3. Very believable. I'm sure that was real. But commercially, you can't give someone 4 servers for $8.99 a month or whatever people were paying. So. Peter, you like having local hardware. So that mean you're not excited, though, at the prospect of something bigger, something more grand from the cloud? Because I am. I definitely am. And I wonder. I mean, Microsoft literally have a team that exists to deliver this. So And by a team, I don't mean a studio that is making a game to do this. I mean they have a division under Xbox that are supposed to scout these kind of experiences and work with developers to make it real. So, for example, Hideo Kojima's rumored whatever it is game, this team from Xbox are supposed to be working and collaborating with him to make that a reality, and they should be working and collaborating with other studios as well to make exciting things that we've never seen before. And isn't that what it's all about at the end of it? Isn't that what makes following the industry exciting, to get new things? Yeah, not sure how long that will take. When do you think it will be on offer to all? The issue with Crackdown 3 is context. The team that was working on that cloud tech was sold to Epic before the project completed. They ended up scrapping that tech. No, like yes and no. So Crackdown had a very complicated development with teams going back and forth. So Ruffian or whatever they were called, the team that made the first two, there were lots of people that were dipping in and out in their involvement. Microsoft also had a hostile environment to deliver a game to, so there was a lot of hostility around always online always online requirements around Xbox games. So I think Microsoft took a coward's way out, giving the Crackdown 3 single player campaign an offline mode. And I understand why they did it, because people were very, very hostile to Microsoft saying things had to be online. But also, with all the tech that they had, teams coming and going is fine, but they had that technology and they could have used it. But if you remember in fact, let's see. Do I want to find it? Crackdown 3 tech demo. Crackdown Cloud Tech Demo. Physics and cloud processing. This might be it. I'm going to see if I can find it while I'm talking. But the thing that made it non-viable and meant that what they delivered was so far below what they showed in tech demos. I can't find the right video. For me, it was illustrated in... Show me. Can't find it. Not the one with the guy on stage. It doesn't matter anyway. They showed a tech demo where they were in the city, they were destroying things, and they had it all color coded, so you could see a definition of what was running on one server, what was running on another, and what was running on another. And as they tore down the city, more and more servers would come and support that. So at one point they had like 6 different servers supporting one player running around a city destroying buildings. And that's fine. Like, there were a lot of people that doubted the legitimacy of the demo. I didn't personally doubt the legitimacy of the demo. I think it was real and achievable, but not for the price of Xbox Live Gold. And that's why I say when these cloud projects, when they eventually do scale up, when this becomes a real thing, when you can dedicate all of these servers to having real damage in a large scale environment, it can't be for one person. This has to be a persistent world that hundreds or thousands of people are joining in and experiencing, because you can't give 6 servers to every consumer playing Crackdown. David James was a great bloke. Yeah, that's the head of Ruffian, one of the co-creators of the first 2 Grand Theft Auto games. He was a great bloke and a good developer, but he always underestimated dev times by quite a bit, yeah. Okay, Santi, you've sent me the article. The tech was called Cloud Genius. It was. Epic bought it and Xbox ended up losing the use of it for Crackdown 3. Yeah. Yes and no. Generally, they could have used that if they wanted to. I know that Epic bought Cloud Gene, but that wouldn't prohibit Microsoft from using it if they wanted to. Especially not when they had a project that had been in the works for like 2 or 3 years or whatever. But Crackdown 3 is old news, massively disappointing to everyone except Colt Eastwood, who loved it. Mostly for the campaign, which was very much an offline experience. Anyway, that's not something that I meant to talk about, but it is. It piques my interest when we talk about potential, unrealized potential, future potential, things that gaming could be within the confines of technology that exists. So it's exciting to see where things could go and where they are going and where they might not go. But tell you what's not exciting. What's not exciting is how much money Microsoft make. But we'll talk about it really quickly anyway, because this conversation has been doing the rounds everywhere. I'm not going to talk about Activision Blizzard and all that nonsense, but there was a figure that went around that caused a bit of a stir, which you can blame Colt for as well. Which is the $2.9 billion that Xbox Game Pass made in 2021. So, I don't like this question that everyone's been answering. So before I ask it, I'm just going to preface it by saying I don't like the question, but I'm going to ask it anyway because you can have your own takes on it and it's fun, right? So, $2.9 billion for a year of a year's revenue for Game Pass. Do we think that's a profitable service or not? I'll get into why I don't like the question in a second, but we'll get the simple bit out of the way because it's what everyone seems to want to talk about at the moment. So, profitable, not profitable. What is your take? Gogglepo, welcome along. Seems people can't stop playing Overwatch 2, which is surprising. Who's playing Overwatch 2? Nobody's invited me to play Overwatch 2. I would like to play Overwatch 2, and we did talk a little bit about this at the start. I would like to play Overwatch 2 mostly as a support character, because them's my favourites. But I don't want to do that with strangers. I don't want to heal people that I don't know. I want to heal friends. Can't do it. I can't queue. And now that Overwatch has this these fixed roles, so you have to queue as support or as damage or as tank rather than have some flexibility in who you play as. I can't queue as support to heal people I don't know or like. Compassionate choice. We don't know when we shouldn't pocket watch Microsoft. You just keep pumping up Game Pass and you're happy. Yeah. This is why you're absolutely right. The pocket watching Microsoft is like not that interesting to me. They can do what they want with their money. They're not suffering, are they? People will love you as good support. But Gogglepo, I didn't say I'd be good support. I said I'd be support. This is my problem. I can't be asked to try and appease people. Like, you get what you get. You get a bad support, you get a bad support. Just heal and hide. That's what you do. Yeah, it's not so much. I'm not actually saying that I'll be terrible at it. I played a tiny bit back in Overwatch 1 days as Moira and as Mercy and as all of those characters, and I was decent enough, I think. But for entertainment's sake, we'll assume I was absolutely terrible. And I want to find people that will enjoy the game and be nice and have fun. Because that's just a nicer way to play online games for me. Peter Morland, people seem to be boiling it down to subs versus game costs, but there are many more costs than that. However, you would say certainly they're not losing money. Yeah, this is why I prefaced the question to say I don't like this question. I think it's a silly question. Game Pass doesn't exist in isolation within Microsoft as a service that you can say is profitable or not on its own 2 feet. Like you say, the costs are way more complicated. The money that it brings in and the impact on the Xbox division is also way more complicated. I've seen, so it was good old buddy Colt, and I do like Colt and get along with him, but he's the one that instantly saw this figure and proclaimed Game Pass profitable on Twitter and kind of kickstarted this conversation. Gogglepo, is PS Plus sustainable? PS Plus we'll come on to that in a bit. But he started this conversation, and sustainable is the word that we know Microsoft has said in the past. So that always comes up as well. Is it sustainable? Of course it is, and all the rest of it. But the reason that I don't like to talk about whether it's profitable or not is because it is just, how can you separate the cost of Game Pass from the cost of all the studios that they're acquiring for Game Pass and the cost that they're put into cloud streaming? Game Pass doesn't exist without those things. They're so intertwined within Xbox, and that's just the cost side. Don't blind yourself. And that's just the cost side. But then how do you boil down the value of it? Because yes, it's got 2.9 billion in revenue. How many of these Xboxes have been sold because of Game Pass? How many games have been bought because of Game Pass? How much DLC has been bought because of Game Pass? So again, interlock the fingers, snap them all and tangle them around, because Game Pass does not exist as a standalone service that you can just equate on a profit and loss chart. and say, oh, it costs this much, it doesn't cost that much, it makes that much in revenue. It's the wrong conversation. Sustainable doesn't necessarily mean profitable. Profitable, I mean, if you want a profit and loss sheet, you can be very creative with where you put the costs. You can instantly tank the profitability of Game Pass by saying that the Activision Blizzard acquisition is part of the cost of running that service. And it's not, I'm being facetious, it's not the case. But at the same time, it's not fair to dismiss the entirety of that 70 billion either. Because they've said themselves that they're buying these people for content for Game Pass. So of course it's part of the cost of building the service, part of the cost of building Xbox as a platform and an ecosystem, and Game Pass is one facet of it. And if you're not gonna consider other costs, and you can talk about marketing and operation costs, but what about KY, very good. That would blind most people. But what about the cost of like however many Xbox Series X chipsets that they put in their data centers for cloud streaming that is only really, or was only accessible through a Game Pass Ultimate subscription? And then how do you attribute that cost? Because that's not true anymore. And now it's also available for people to play Fortnite for free. So all of these things just split and intertwine and split, and a profit and loss sheet just makes no sense for this conversation. Is it profitable now? Wrong question. Are Microsoft investing really heavily to build it? Yes, they are. Is the Xbox division profitable? Surely not, because these acquisitions have to go against the Xbox division. Should we care if it's profitable or not? No. No, I don't care. I'm skeptical. I'm always going to be skeptical of what big corporations are doing and where they're heading. But in the immediate future, in the present and the immediate future right now, Microsoft is spending a buttload of money to give us a load of things that are good for us. Game Pass is good for us today. If it's good for us in 10 years is a different question. I don't know the answer to that question yet. Nobody does. But is it good for us today? Yes, it is. Are Microsoft making money on it today? Don't give a shit. Don't give a shit. Everyone forgets that Microsoft is in it for the long run. Yeah, of course they are. And that's the... Yeah. I almost accidentally started talking about Activision Blizzard then and all the rest of it. I don't want to, it's too boring. Even if there are like a few interesting fringe nuggets around it, I just don't want to take the conversation in that direction. Peter Morland, you would like them to be profitable, you want to carry on and get better. Yeah. It depends. I don't trust any massive corporation with the future of gaming. So I'm not wishing harm on Microsoft. I think the Microsoft today and the things that they're doing today are good. I still don't know what it looks like in 10 years' time. I don't know that the gaming that I enjoy today exists in 10 years. Well, to some degree. What I don't want is the whole industry to follow. There's always these massive calls for Sony to do exactly what Microsoft are doing. And I don't necessarily want that to be the case. I don't want Nintendo to be the last bastion of traditional games that aren't filled with microtransactions. And I'm not saying that Microsoft today are that sinister, but Microsoft in 10 years' time, once they've established this service and everyone is using it, I don't know. Microsoft in 15 years' time, when Phil Spencer's stepped down and Don Matrix taken the helm again, I don't know. I don't know. So I'll just stick to what's right in front of me and what I know. I'm going to subscribe to Game Pass while it is good. I'm going to buy games. I haven't got any money to buy games, but I will buy games if I get that. I will play what I want. And I will hope for the best. Because we as consumers have no power. We have no power. We can't stop these things from happening. Danger Mouse, no, says Peter. He's clearly watching Danger Mouse at the same time as we're here. You know that so you don't want to be at the mercy of pony pricing and policies. Yeah, no, but you don't want to be at the mercy of any one of these corporations. Oh, Don Matrix. Yeah, I have some sympathy for him. Some sympathy. Because a lot of what he was doing was mandated from above his head. And a lot of what he's doing, Phil Spencer's navigated a lot better than he did. But broadly in the same direction. So things being always online and the move. So Xbox Game Pass as a subscription service has been Microsoft's direction as a wider company for a long time, and the stuff that Danger Mouse was trying to do was in line with that. He didn't know how to get there. He failed. He dropped the ball. But he was following a mandate from above his head, and Phil Spencer has followed more or less the same mandate. He's just a lot better at navigating that. Is that after what they paid for games in Game Pass? Well, Takada, so you've had an internet outage and you're a little behind, I'm assuming. Yeah, I mean, the cost of games, the 2.9 billion in revenue, I'm sure is covering the cost of third-party deals, which is the bit that Colt is getting at when he says that it's profitable. Operating costs of their studios, marketing, all of the rest of these things, it's just a lot more complicated. But we won't revisit that too much, because I do stand by it's just the wrong conversation around it. Profitability is not where it's at. Not what matters to us, not what matters to Microsoft right now, and not what we can take from the numbers that we're aware of. Don Metric had zero charisma and could not engage with the media. Not good considering his job. So this is why people liken him to Jim Ryan. Yeah. Ultimately, it shouldn't be the most important thing in his job, but it doesn't matter. It matters to people like us that follow the industry in the way that we do. But it shouldn't matter in terms of... it's nowhere near as important as delivering good games and services, right? It's Phil Spencer having a silver tongue and being able to please everyone with his words all the time. Sure, it's nice, but ultimately he's been in charge for like 100 years, and he should be judged for his failings and his successes rather than his words. You don't care if Jim Ryan cries or is a tough guy. It's all about who will put their money in games. Yeah, exactly. End result matters more than their words, more than public perception of them as people. Which corporation puts what amount into games? Yeah. Dakota, you play Kiriko in Overwatch 2. All you do is queue. That surprises me. Is the support queue a bad one? Do you have to... Is it like World of Warcraft where tanks are in desperate need, followed by support, and if you queue for damage, you wait forever? Or is damage pretty okay? Microsoft can put a lot more money than Sony. Microsoft can put a lot more money than Sony, but they'll also be expecting a lot more money back as well. And that's where... That's not necessarily bad. If Microsoft are going to get more money back by expanding the audience, it could work out well for those of us that were already in there at the core of it. PlayStation just re-releases old games and makes film series off of them now. Yeah, PlayStation do release games as well, though, to be fair. Right? There's a lot that PlayStation do that I'm not a big fan of, obviously. There's a lot to complain about their practices, and this isn't new. Sony have had a dark side forever. But they are still releasing some good stuff too. Phil chooses his words very carefully. If you listen to all of them, you can tell what he is and isn't saying. Those that don't listen are then surprised later. See, Peter, this is why I always say he has a silver tongue. He says the right things to the right audiences, and it's taken as a negative. You can say when someone's got a silver tongue, you're calling them a liar. I'm not calling him a liar. I'm saying he's very effective in what he says and what he doesn't say. So exactly what you're saying there. Chooses his words very carefully. He's come unstuck a few times recently because it's getting harder to navigate now that people are, I don't know, losing patience or things are getting a bit more complicated. But he's very, very good at saying the right thing to the right people. Morbius, I've not seen Morbius. I'm sure it's brilliant. It's not the dark side of Sony that I was referring to. Takado, it might be fair to middling as a service profit-wise with all the factors. You see severe growing pains. So Game Pass, the trajectory of Game Pass, it's interesting that I'm sure it's not growing as much as they want it to. We don't get numbers very often, and It's a difficult one in terms of content because there's this assumption that they need to navigate that you can take gaming that we've got at the moment. So you've got Xbox, PlayStation, PC, all of these things, the kind of games that we all like, this core of the experience. And Microsoft is saying we can bring that to 4 billion people. And there's this working assumption that to do that, what they need to do is tear down the barriers of entry. That if you can get games to these people without them needing to buy a console, without them needing to go out of their way to play them, maybe everyone actually really likes games and they just haven't discovered them yet. And it's a massive gamble. I understand the thinking and I understand the assumption that tear down those barriers to entry and you grow gaming massively. But the question is whether is there actually an audience to grow the kind of gaming that we like into? Is there a significant audience that will play God of War Ragnarok, or I'm trying to think of an Xbox game, but they bloody well don't release anything, that would play Forza Horizon 5 if only it was put in front of them on their TV and they didn't have to go through the effort? Or is it actually the case that the people that are interested in those experiences are actually mostly already doing them? And that's something that we'll find out over the next few years. I do think gaming and media will converge in different ways. So Microsoft are obviously coming at it from the gaming side, trying to bring gaming to more people. And then you look at like Netflix on the other end of the scale, who are doing stuff you watch and slowly bringing more interactivity into it. Those things will converge at some point. But where the audience sits along that scale, where the big 4 billion audience actually is, we'll see. We shall see. My dad played Halo, so that counts for something. You think the cloud talk is just a cover-up? They know they need the console market hugely to succeed. Okay, Santi, on the point of subs that they have, you're starting to be convinced by an Everborn theory. They gave us the 25 million number right before the announcement. Might not be their best interest to update. Not sure about that, because any regulator is going to ask that question and they're going to update them. So I'm not sure that they're masking that information from anyone that it would impact in that sense. Comments for the CMA. This is the Goggle Po. This is the subject we're avoiding. The comments for the CMA were directory if they do not underestimate Sony as a brand name in consoles. Yeah. The CMA stuff is tiresome. The only thing that I will say on that is that I'm glad that they're doing their job. Whatever way the deal goes, all of these regulators, the CMA, the CADE in Brazil, the FTC, all of them perform a really important function. And Xbox fans or PlayStation fans kicking and screaming because they want the deal to go one way or the other is like, no. These regulators are the reason that we're not going to have like a cyberpunk dystopia where our lives are controlled by the Ascent group. Let them do their job. Let them do their job. Like, otherwise you have unchecked capitalism and the doom of us all. Microsoft and Activision Blizzard is not that serious. Like, who cares if they get it or not? Just let them do their job. It's not about the deal, it's about the commitment, really. Yes, KSMT, the court of public opinion. It's one of those things, though. Like, a whole load of PlayStation fans would like to see the Brazilian regulator not exist, and a whole load of Xbox fans would like to see the UK regulator not exist, because they're like, they see them as an enemy, and they're not an enemy. They're just doing their job. I get that some of the stuff that has been made public you might disagree with, like particularly like the positions around PlayStation and all the rest of it, but this is just so minor. Let them do their job. That's my take on it anyway. Deal blocked, deal through, don't care. Don't give me the Ascent group in charge of everything. Put the checks in place. We need them a lot. It's like when you see groups of people trying to tear down like human rights agreements because they want bad things to happen to somebody else. So they'll sacrifice their own rights to see something that they want happen to someone else. And then you see the same thing here. Like, they literally exist to protect you as a consumer. Let them. And that's that for that topic that I didn't want to touch. Let's talk about, where are we? 10:30. I'm going to skip World of Warcraft. On the point of proper checks and balance. We really agree. Good. What happens? I'm not giving an opinion on it though. Compassionate choice. I'm not getting drawn into the whole deal, except to say like whatever. Just let it go. You're right though. I didn't want to talk about it. So that was too much. I've slipped. I will. Not sure what I'm going to do to reprimand myself, but it will happen. There will be consequences. So I'm going to skip the World of Warcraft bit because it's World of Warcraft. Who cares, right? I do. I played it loads, but I'm not going to talk about it today. We're going to talk about break my green screen as punishment. No, that would hurt too much. WoW on console. Okay, we can talk about that. That was a sub point. Fine. World of Warcraft. World of Warcraft in its current state. So I played World of Warcraft when Wrath of the Lich King came out the first time. I played it when the Burning Crusade came out. I played it pre-alpha. I hated World of Warcraft. I still hate World of Warcraft. That bloody game. Right. But I played it an awful lot. It's probably more than I've played any other game, apart from possibly Quake 3. Played it a lot. Didn't like it, but played with friends and enjoyed that bit. In its current state, World of Warcraft is Bowser's Castle. World of Warcraft is Bowser's Castle in its current state. I am a green screen. So it's not Bowser's Castle. KY said to make my backdrop Bowser's Castle, which would require opening up a Switch game and finding a good scene and recording it. And then it would probably be too low resolution for my stream. So I don't know if we can have a Nintendo game here as a background. But World of Warcraft. In its current state, you've got two versions of it on the PC. You can go, so as Compassionate Choice has said there, WoW Classic all day. The new stuff is boo-boo. All right. See, I would still not go back to World of Warcraft Classic at this point in time, but reasons. So World of Warcraft, if you go into the current version, modern day version, there's an expansion due out in November that might correct some of this. But it's not the first time they tried to correct a lot of this. If you go into World of Warcraft right now, you've got like 15 to 800. I can't remember how long it's been out, but I'm going to say 15 years of content. And Blizzard have really, really struggled in presenting that to a new player or a returning player. So if you go on to Shadowlands, it's the current expansion. If you go onto that as a new character, you're now greeted by a gnome that is in fact a time-traveling dragon, which you'd know if you had played the game for 15 years. But this gnome is a time-traveling dragon who gives you the choice of what period of World of Warcraft you want to go and level through. So you can go and level through Wrath of the Lich King, through Cataclysm, through Mists of Pandaland, or whatever it's called. And you're just bombarded with a horrible interface and choices that don't actually mean a lot unless you're already very familiar with the game. So it's messy, and it's a shame because going through those old things would be nice. I'm not in either at the moment. Chromati, whatever she's called, the gnome time-traveling bronze dragon. All of the bronze dragons in World of Warcraft are time-hopping magic dragons. The different colours of Dragonflight all have different purposes, and the bronze ones are supposed to protect the flow of time with lots of time travel. So they use it in World of Warcraft as a mechanic to revisit old content quite often in different ways, which is nice and convenient for them, but it's a horrible new player experience. So you've also got World of Warcraft Classic, which runs in parallel. So on PC, World of Warcraft got so streamlined and so overburdened with content and systems and all the rest of it. So these two things go hand in hand, believe it or not. So streamlined in terms of all of the characters have been brought perfectly in line to all be almost exactly the same. They all do like exactly the same damage output in all circumstances and all the rest of it. this element has been streamlined. If you want to go and do a dungeon now, you just click a couple of buttons and join a queue and you go and play with people. It's been streamlined, but you've also got 15 years of content, 15 years of systems, mess all over the place, overburdening it with all kinds of things to do. And people didn't like various elements of the streamlining or the over complication, and they wanted the experience that they remembered from their childhood. They had this nostalgia for Classic, so Classic came along eventually, and Blizzard run them both in parallel. So World of Warcraft Retail, they call it, keeps traveling forwards with new content and new expansions, and World of Warcraft Classic is like they re-released Warcraft from the beginning, and they're running through from they've done vanilla, so the base game, they've done the first expansion, the Burning Crusade, and very recently they've done Wrath of the Lich King, which was the second expansion. And I don't actually know what they're planning to do with Classic, because obviously if they keep Classic going forwards at this rate, they're very soon going to hit the point that includes the features that people don't like. The reason that they went to Classic in the first place will no longer apply. But they're going to keep these going forwards. And then you've got... Don't hate me, I'm going to mention them again. Then you've got, potentially, Microsoft acquiring Activision Blizzard. Which I don't want to mention it, but it is relevant in some ways, right? So Microsoft acquiring Activision Blizzard, acquiring World of Warcraft. What is new ownership going to do? What do you want to see them do? So Compassionate Choice has already mentioned, was it you that mentioned it or someone else? Has already mentioned the potential of bringing it to console. The console release that people have been clamoring for potentially, or some people speculating over, hoping for, talking about for the entire 15 years that the game has been available. It's due to come to console. And you've got a big question there on whether they should bring it to console. Because, like I just said about it, like today, the new player experience is freaking awful. It's horrible. There's no point in bringing it to console while it's so nasty. The new expansion looks to change the on-ramping, looks to change the new player experience. Maybe they're doing it specifically because they want to release it to more places, or maybe they're doing it because it's kind of essential that the game isn't terrible for people wanting to play it if they want it to carry on going forwards. But yeah, what do we think? What should Microsoft do? Should Microsoft keep it as a subscription game with microtransactions and paid expansions and a pet store and all of that crap? Or should they tie it in with Game Pass? Should they sacrifice the 5 million subscribers, like that amount of money, to include it in Game Pass and move people over and get more people accessing this game? Should they do a console version? We all know the correct answer is they should make a virtual reality version. Like, this is the correct answer for every game, but Microsoft are obviously not the ones to do it. How should they handle World of Warcraft? Does anybody here still play it today? What version do you play? Does anyone long for it? Does anybody want to play World of Warcraft? Either because you've played it before, or just because you've heard of it and you want to experience it for the first time. Would you touch it on console? Only Korea and China, a serious MMO development is happening. I don't know about that. The social games in general, like massively multiplayer online games, existed before the online boom. And social experiences in general. So you get a lot of games now that are very online, very connected experiences, but you wouldn't describe them as an MMORPG because the systems that they deploy to make these games work, to make them fun, to help people link up, they're streamlined. They made it easier for people. They're always trying to tear down barriers for things that might stop you from playing with your friends. So if you play an ancient crusty MMORPG like Final Fantasy XIV, or a proper old one, you have to select a server and create a character. This is still true on World of Warcraft Classic, but not on World of Warcraft Retail. You have to select a server, and if your friend gets into the game and sets up a character on a different server, you don't get to play with that person. So modern games, that's a trapping that you can't imagine console players would be at all happy with. And it's a trapping that World of Warcraft Retail has moved on from. So World of Warcraft Retail uses lots of server merging and phasing and instancing to let you traverse across servers and play with other people and all the rest of it. But yeah, complicated. Decado, you get shanghaied into playing WoW because of friends that never play it. So I played World of Warcraft in alpha and I hated it. I played it in beta and I hated it. I played it on launch day and I hated it. I played it a few months later and I hated it. And then at some point during the Burning Crusade, a load of people that I was working with, 4 of them got into playing World of Warcraft. Weirdly enough, on the wrong team as well. So all of those prior occasions, alpha, beta, all the rest of it, I was clearly going to be a Horde player, which is a whole different conversation we can have another time. But ended up playing Alliance with friends and enjoyed it for the sake of the fact that I was playing with friends, and played through Wrath of the Lich King entirely. And then during Cataclysm, they all dropped off, but for some reason, despite recognizing all of these flaws in the game, so I stuck with it for ages. I kept playing it until, and I say playing, I didn't play it very seriously. I did the leveling content and got bored of it each time, but I played through Cataclysm, Mists of Pandaland. I think I dropped off on the weird, there was a time travel-y, can't even remember what it was called. You went back to Outlands. It was another burning, whatever, I don't know, World of Warcraft expansions. I fell off of it eventually. Shadowlands, the current expansion, I think is the first one that I don't own, which is a shame. It's not a shame. And I'm probably not going to own the Dragon one unless some people manage to pull me into it. If it came to Xbox, I guess that would increase the chances that people would pull me into it, but otherwise I'm not interested. If it came to virtual reality, day one, straight away, even if I have to play it with a keyboard and mouse, wouldn't want to play it with a keyboard and mouse, but if it came to virtual reality, I'd be all over it. So Wrath of the Lich King was your peak heydays in World of Warcraft. It should have been everyone's. Ricardo, unfortunately, Wrath of the Lich King, you were a 52 raiding guild, so that probably led you to just falling around after that. Warlords of Draenor, yes, Gogglepo, that's the one. That's the one that I think I fell off. I don't know. I've not got big plans. The thing is, I do still have, so MMO RPGs are still my absolute favorite genre in theory of games. I want to play them. I wish I had the kind of time that you need to play them, but to get sucked into an exciting world and play it like that still has an appeal that I can't get away from. I still want to try them all when they come out, but I don't think I've liked any since World of Warcraft broke them. World of Warcraft broke the genre, and I'll be forever bitter. How about Fortnite? What if we wake up tomorrow and hear Epic added a VR component a la No Man's Sky? Would you play it? Yes, of course I would. I play anything like... I've not played Population 1, which is virtual reality's kind of closest thing to Fortnite, but I intend to. I've been meaning to play that for ages. If actual Fortnite supported VR, yeah, of course I'd play it. Of course I'd play it. I'd buy... I wouldn't even buy a skin. I've already got good skins, but I'd play it. Yeah. Severe burnout. Racing 5 days. Raiding 5 days a week. Yeah. Yeah, World of Warcraft was unhealthy for a lot of people. World of Warcraft is also a pioneer of the daily quest. Sinister compulsion loops and things like that, which serve a purpose. I understand why they do it, but lots of bad that World of Warcraft introduced to the genre that didn't used to be there beforehand, which is why I say World of Warcraft ruined the genre. Took so much away from what used to be my favourite. Fortnite, the only big game that you play regularly. Epic knows how to keep it active. Like the no build mode got you back in hugely. Can you build? Do you prefer no build mode? I went on to no build mode on Fortnite when it came out. I've not played it properly, but I had a look at it, and I didn't feel like the map particularly lent itself to not having buildings. It felt like something had been stripped away. I know a lot of people, particular, the people that were previously too old for Fortnite suddenly like it with a no build mode. So I understand that the building is a bit chaotic and a bit out of hand, and it's not necessarily fun to go and shoot someone and see them erect a massive tower. but at the same time it was kind of Fortnite signature, and I didn't feel that the map particularly lent itself to no build mode. Also, I just didn't understand what was happening. Like, why are there fish all over the floor? What do I do? I was playing with my youngest son who liked Fortnite at the time. I was like, why have I just picked up a legendary fish? What does it mean? What do? I don't understand this game anymore. So it didn't go very well. I also didn't get the benefit of easy bot matches that everybody else seems to love. He used to love cranking 90s. He was one of those annoying players. So Peter Morland, do you think when you play City of Heroes / Villains, it was 10 monies a month and you never regretted it? Some things are such good fun and you're prepared to play a premium. So the one that I played before, the main one that I played before World of Warcraft was Asheron's Call 2, which was also, it was a similar price per month, but initially it had monthly content updates, so you felt like you were paying for something worthwhile. And they changed it to bi-monthly, so the content came every other month, but it wasn't... there's a lot that's different. I could talk for too long about what was different about games before World of Warcraft came along, before it changed it, and I could talk quite a lot about what I would change in World of Warcraft to undo the damage, how I would have done it differently, but that's for another time. Did anyone play the Battlefield Battle Royale Firestorm? No. Which Battlefield did that come out in? I remember it, but I didn't touch it. Goggle Poet doesn't. Does it? So Asheron's Call 2, the one that I liked, funnily enough, Microsoft published it. It was their first foray into subscription services. They published it. It wasn't a success for them, partly off their own back because they totally fucked up various things about it. They sold it to the developer, so Turbine ended up buying it. They lost most people during the transition from Microsoft to their own payment services. They ended up shutting down the game. They made Lord of the Rings Online, but then about 10 years after they shut it down, they officially brought it back as just like a happy, nice project they did for their fans. Like, yeah, we remember this game and we've got the capacity to bring it back. We're not actively developing it, but we'd like this thing to exist on the internet and for you to be able to go and experience it. So it came back for 3 months, but then Turbine got bought by another publisher, and it was a bit of a messy buyout that didn't include that particular game. So it got shut down and can never return because it's not owned anymore. But at the point that they brought it back officially, all of the emulation projects that were in the works kind of gave up and went, oh, well, it's back officially now, so we don't need to emulate it anymore. If there are some back again, then I'd be curious. Was Asheron's Call 2 skill-based like 1? So, Ricardo, that's funny. This is proper niche stuff now that no one's going to care about. So, no, Lord of the Rings Online is still going. Passionate Choice, that's the one that did go across when they bought it. I don't know, I think they renewed the license about a year ago, so it's probably going to carry on for a little while despite more Lord of the Rings games coming. Asheron's Call 2 suffered from the Asheron's Call 1 audience not particularly liking it. I never played the first one, or not never, but never before I played the second. The second one was quite different, and they learnt a valuable lesson that sequels are a bad idea in MMORPGs. So Asheron's Call 1 and Asheron's Call 2 ran in parallel, side by side, and essentially split the audience in half for both games, which was recognised as a mistake in hindsight. Lord of the Rings Online is still surviving with a planned console release. A planned console release will be a little challenging because there's a different one. There's another Lord of the Rings MMO RPG in the works from a different studio entirely. So Lord of the Rings licensing, much like Marvel licensing now, they're quite open with it. They give it to anyone and everyone at the same time, which is why you've got games like Gollum alongside there's a weird dwarf survival game like Mines of Moria survival game kicking around too. Lots of Lord of the Rings projects. Lord of the Rings Online is unfortunately a World of Warcraft skin. Like mechanically, it very much took World of Warcraft and stuck a Lord of the Rings skin on it, much like Final Fantasy XIV took World of Warcraft and stuck a Final Fantasy skin on it. Gogglepay, you liked Astronaut School 2, but it was not popular. It had a low population, but you liked that you could play the ogre race. Luggy. Can't remember what they were called, but yeah. It wasn't popular, so one of the things, this is, again, very few people are going to care, but the reason I say that Microsoft screwed up a lot of the launch is that Microsoft handled the chat servers for it, and they didn't work for the first 6 months of the game. So you had a massively multiplayer online game where you couldn't talk to people. So yes, it definitely ended up low population. But it was a good population, it was fun, good people. It was also in... no, I'm not going to talk about that. That's too obscure. Too obscure. Maybe I'll do videos on obscure things for people that actually care about obscure things, but I will save it for this. This is too general a chat to go into those. Valheim. Gogglepay, you searched for it and it looks like it's down. Yeah, there definitely was one in the works, and they did the actual non-emulated game as well, but it went away. Yeah, videos. I did say it on the internet, but I have the power to delete everything from the internet. Phantom Dust is obscure and you like it very much. Are you Miles in disguise? That is my question for you. It's a shame that they didn't follow through on the proper Phantom Dust project that they had in the works. Phantom Dust had its cult following, kind of like Asheron's Call, actually. So you're right in that sense. It had a following that really liked and appreciated it. And Microsoft were making a proper Phantom Dust game, and then they changed their mind and just release the original one, basically. But with some free-to-play stuff going on, I don't know. But it bombed and they killed that. Who knows? Maybe it will come back one day if Miles keeps shouting loud enough and you give him a little bit of support. Miles Dompierre, he's the one that's constantly asking for Phantom Dust. Gogglepay, you loved Vanguard. Yeah, that was from a load of the EverQuest developers, right? It had a lot of EverQuest about it. You think you had more fun in Warhammer Online? And it was a failed experiment of World of Warcraft and others. Yeah, I played a little Warhammer Online. Played many things. Like I really like that genre of game, massively multiplayer online games, and this was. I don't know. I can't honestly say if I still like that genre of game, like if that still exists. Because when I loved that genre of game, online play wasn't prevalent anywhere else really. You had competitive first-person shooter games and things like that, but you didn't really have experiences that MMORPGs can offer elsewhere. Now, will I ever find another one that I can love as much? I don't know. Would I like Asheron's Call 2 if it came out today? Almost certainly not, but I liked it back then. There's been a little Phantom Dust resurgence, has there? From a YouTube documentary. Fair enough. Fair enough. I haven't touched it. Which isn't strictly true. I did download it when it came out. Not the original one, but the I don't want to call it I don't know what to call it. Remake, remaster. It's just an HD version, right? What did I know? You didn't tell me about Phantom Dust. Nobody's ever told me about Phantom Dust. Stop yelling at me. Let's go on to the last topic really quickly, because this is long. I wanted, as with every week, I'm like, oh, this is going to be a short one. We'll keep it nice and succinct and concise. Get it done. Have some fun. Not much to talk about. Then I'll go to sleep. But no, here we are. We're still going. Got the last topic to go, and I promised I'd talk about this one, so I must. Vaguely, we're going to talk about Minecraft. Broadly, we're going to talk about players having a say in development choices. So I don't know if we've got anyone here. Obviously, Isla plays Minecraft. I don't know if anybody else plays Minecraft, but they have every year at their Minecon, or in the run up to Minecon, maybe it's there on the day, I don't know. They have a player vote. It's every year for the last 2 or 3 years. They have a player vote on a creature type, a mob that they're going to introduce into the game. So they present 3 different creatures, 3 different characters, monsters, whatever, and they let the community vote on which one should actually be developed and added to the game, and then they go ahead and do that. And I can't remember if it was last year or the year before, but they had some interesting characters that you could add in, or they had an Illumina squid that doesn't work properly with ray tracing. And influencers hijacked the vote and got everyone to vote wrong and put a terrible choice into the game. This year's choices, I knew this because I did specifically look at it, but I've completely forgotten what they are. You've got like some kind of golem that can move items around or some nonsense like that. Isla, what's the correct choice? What are people supposed to vote? But broadly, because I know most people here aren't going to be that into Minecraft specifically, I want to know if you've got any examples like that, possibly from games that came out in early access. In theory, the whole point of games coming out in early access is that the developers can respond to player feedback and make improvements accordingly. But have you got any good examples of games where developers have asked their player base what they want to see and implemented it for better or worse? So the glow squid example that Isla was talking about from 2020 was super disappointing because it was just a squid that glows, and the way that disappointed me personally is it was Isla's birthday, so in June this year we played Minecraft and I did the whole thing in the fully ray traced mode, and the glow squid doesn't even ray trace. It's a terrible creature that nobody should have voted for. Apart from that, though, the stream was quite entertaining. Isla built some magical stuff. So if you have any interest in seeing Minecraft fully ray traced, that's still up on the channel. You can go and watch that. It's impressive in places, and the work that she put in was mad. And yes, she got glow squid instead of a mushroom cow thing. There are mushroom cows. I don't know. I'm very confused. Very confused by Minecraft things. I don't follow it closely enough. Peter Monage, you really want to love Minecraft, but it never grabs you. I don't know if you are missing something. I'm not sure that it is for everyone. Mooblin was the yellow flower cow. Yeah, I remember. I remember the yellow flower cow. But Peter, do you like other survival games? Minecraft has like two sides to it. It's got its creative side, and I'm not talking about the modes that you can select. You can literally flip the game between creative and survival. But in terms of appeal, you've got people that like to build things, but it's also like fairly pioneering in the survival genre. There weren't too many games that were doing survival like Minecraft did at the point that it came out. So the need to like eat and build and survive the night and all the rest of it. So if you're into games like Ark and The Forest and Subnautica and things like that, they all have like roots in the kind of survival side of Minecraft. You like survival so long as it isn't deadly every 5 minutes. I don't like survival unless it's in virtual reality, and then I like everything. Virtual reality makes everything better. I'd probably even like FIFA in virtual reality. I wouldn't, that would suck. No, it wouldn't, it'd be great. Everything's great. You're going to do a poll. You can do that, but you've not got very long because we're like right at the end. So either the one that you're suggesting for this year's Minecraft vote, the Tough Golem, what does it do? Is stealth in VR good? That's funny. I played a game recently, Phantom Covert Ops, which is like a big clash in my interest because it was very much the stealth mechanics that I hate presented in virtual reality. It's quite a unique, quite fascinating game because you play the whole thing in like a kayak canoe thing. And it tells this little story where you're infiltrating like a supposedly derelict base that's flooded, and you're in a canoe. So it was it's made for people to play sitting in a chair in a very novel way. You literally are rowing a boat around, and it's fan-bloody-tastic in that sense. Like, it's so well executed, the way that you are the canoe, but the way that you move around, and you can, like, if you get near to structures in the environment, you can grab them and drag the boat, and it's all very intuitive. You've got your guns and stuff like that, but at the same time it does literally want you to hide in the long grass and sneak past people, which I couldn't bring myself to do, so I didn't get all that far in the game. I was like, oh, you want me to sneak past these guards? How about I shoot them in the face? And then I'd shoot a couple and get myself killed repeatedly. I died a lot in that game. So, is stealth good in VR? Everything is good in VR, but stealth can still fall into the same traps that make it bad in pancake games. Doesn't really answer. I'd still play it. Give me stealth games in VR, I'll play them. Give me anything in VR, I'll give it a go. Give me some nice high polished virtual reality games and I'm there. I've been very, very focused on avoiding stealth playing Horizon in pancake mode at the moment. That gives you lots of opportunities for stealth and I refuse in everything. It's not fun. I almost voted on the poll then, but implementing player-decided content is generally a good idea, generally a bad idea. It can go either way. Yeah, so this is why I was asking about specific examples. In terms of player-decided content, I don't think players know what's good for them more often than not. And that's not to be like really condescending, but the example that I use is you've got a game like World of Warcraft or Asheron's Call or something like that, and you're level 11 and there's a level 15 dungeon in front of you and your level 70 friend offers to take you through. Most people will say yes because that's like, it's in front of them and it's appealing. It gets them what they want nice and quickly. And they're ruining their own game with that decision. And I think the same can apply in players making decisions or being asked to make decisions about games. They're not necessarily going to realize how things are going to play out and affect them. So I think if you're asking players to tell you, like with most things, there's a delicate balance. You want to take feedback from players by all means, but you don't want to take their solutions more often than not, is my take on it. I think as a developer, you need to listen to players, you need to understand the pain points, but you should be the one coming up with the answers, because their answers are probably either going to be detrimental to them directly or are going to be detrimental to other players around them. It's like a game, a competitive game. If you're playing Overwatch right now and your main character is Kiriko, who I don't know anything about, so it's a terrible example. I think she throws cards and crap. But if you're playing as Kiriko and the developers ask you like if she should be buffed or nerfed, very, very few to none Kiriko players are going to say you should nerf her. They're all going to want this character to be stronger because it's their favorite. If you listen to those players, then you could be making a dire mistake. So I think lines of communication are good. I think early access games, that being the theory, it's quite a good idea to invite players to give feedback to make the game better. But I don't think developers should ever lean on feedback to make the game, like not lean too heavily on it, not lean on community answers. It's their job to come up with the answers. They just need to understand and read between the lines on the feedback that they get. There must be, I'm sure there should be some really good examples of like games that have really heavily used the audience to build the game, to direct it and make those decisions. But I've got no good examples like in mind, so can't give you one. You do think it's generally a bad idea. Scorn in virtual reality. I've never played Scorn. I will play Scorn tomorrow. It would be better in virtual reality. Guaranteed. Guaranteed. Elden Ring just patched in a feature that was highly requested and people are very happy. The previous patch was also good. Most of this is probably because of data from the game though. What feature? Painful Discourse. And Elden Ring's an interesting example though, because I wonder what kind of feedback they would have got if they had gone the early access route, shown people Elden Ring and taken feedback. What kind of feedback they would have got, what people would have asked for at that point. Would they have asked for like waypoints? Because that's a kind of example that you'd get. If they went to their audience and said, what should we do to make it better? A whole load of people may have come back and said, put quest markers. I don't know where I'm going, give me a quest marker. And that would have been detrimental to Elden Ring, right? But it's hypothetical. Maybe I'm underestimating the audience and one of those people would play Elden Ring and recognize that not having markers everywhere is actually part of what makes that game good. So hints of ray tracing, yeah, I read that little bit. Class balance should never be decided by anything other than data. Yes and no. Class balance, depending on the type of game, shouldn't necessarily be entirely data driven. Or you'd have to be very good at interpreting the data. Again, like, everything's nuanced in life everywhere, so like so if you're talking about balance in Overwatch again, yeah, you definitely need to use data to it's a very key component in balancing things. But if you go too far, if you look at World of Warcraft and the way that they balance things, balance in World of Warcraft is entirely data driven, or it seems to be overly data driven, and what you've ended up there with is 10, 11, 12, I don't know how many classes there are, 12 classes that basically perform in exactly the same way, because they looked at the data and they went so far as saying, like, oh, if you've got like a patchwork test, so patchwork is a boss in World of Warcraft who didn't really do anything, it's a single target, stay still boss that characters can completely unleash on and get peak single target damage. They went, oh, every character needs to be able to do the same damage in like a patchwork environment, like simple boss. And then they had like, oh, mages are pretty good at area of effect, so are this class, but we don't like that. We need every class to be able to contribute equally in every circumstance. So now in today's World of Warcraft, every class does the same damage in every circumstance, and to achieve that they do it with pretty much the same mechanics. All of them are so similar to play now, and that's taking data driven balance too far. So there's nuance to everything and skill to doing these things. It's the issue if enough questions are asked in the data. Yeah. You think you'd find a few on Steam, but pure player only design you haven't seen as you've described. Yeah, I'm sure, like, it makes sense as an experiment, but who knows what you'd get out of it. Maybe we'll do it one day. No, I don't know how to make anything, otherwise I would. So GogglePay, you played Space Engineers and people made it more planet focused than they intended. Yeah, that's so players make decisions once the game is in their hands, in terms of it's entirely up to them how they go and play it and how they approach the content. So I think there's been loads of examples of developers coming out and being like, oh, we built it like this, we did not expect players to go and do what they did. But I don't know. I'm rambling now, gone totally off topic. Did I hear that Persona 3 and 4 are getting an exclusive update for Xbox only? I did not hear that. I know that they are coming, and as they don't exist on Xbox, they'll have to do something with them, but I didn't know. I don't know what they're doing, what kind of update this is. Previous patch for Elden Ring added new functionality for summoning pools. You can choose near and far, not just current area. The separate player scaling for PvP and PvE in the new one was even better. Oh, I see. That's the thing that they added. Okay. I don't know what that means. I don't know what scales differently. You mean certain weapons are like, or certain character builds and abilities and things will now scale differently because they took the problem, I'm assuming, they looked at a problem where certain things were balanced in the PvE environment that is core to the game but were massively overpowered in player versus player, and rather than try to address those skills in a way that worked in both, they just decided, fuck it, we'll make it work differently against players to what it does against bosses and things, which is usually that's a difficult development choice, but sometimes it makes sense to go that way. Persona 3 and 4 will get new gen versions on the Xbox Series X and S, but not the PlayStation 5 from Games Radar. Are they coming out on the PlayStation 5? Like, are they doing, like, I think you'll be able to get them in some sense, but are they just releasing the previous version, or what's the deal with that? I don't know. Don't worry about vitriol on Twitter, just ignore it. Tune it out. Twitter gets boring, go to Game On Daily instead. Nobody says anything there, so no vitriol. Just gaming news. And hopefully one of these days, I mean, in the distant future, when we've actually built what we want to build there, it can replace Twitter entirely. It'd be great. PlayStation 5 is getting the old version. Yeah, I mean... So, Persona 4, wasn't Persona 4 a like PlayStation Vita game, or was it not? I don't know. I don't know the Persona series. It's set in high school, so I don't like it. I tried Persona 5, I tried to like it. I like the style, I understand some of the appeal, but... High school romance options? No, get the fuck out. Get the fuck out. Why is it? Why are all Japanese games either set in a high school or culminating with an ancient evil that's been sealed away? Or both. Give me some JRPGs that are neither of those two things. But if I have to have one of those two things, I'll take the ancient evil that's been sealed away. Anyway. Did we have a good time? I think we did. Let's all hit the like button. I'm going to go and hit the like button. Wait a second. Let's do this properly. Because we haven't had our regular Q&A session. PlayStation 5 has the game, it's just the PlayStation 4 version. And while this is going on, I'm going to interrupt it and I'm going to hit the like button. I'm not going to hit the like button because you can't hit the like button on your own stream, because then Google officially recognizes you as a dickhead. And I don't want to be a dickhead. But for the rest of you, you're not dickheads if you hit like. So hit the like button. Don't hit subscribe because you're already subscribed. If you're watching after the fact, comment on anything that we've spoken about or anything that we haven't spoken about. And anything that you want us to speak about last week, and we will do that. Last week? No, if you comment something that you want us to speak about last week, I can't help you. Last week already happened. But anything that you want me to talk about next week, yeah, we can probably do that. And that's the end. So go live this weekend. We have David Jaffe back, so it's going to be a lively one, and we've got Mag as well. So there will be lots of talk, probably not much of it from me, to be fair. I suspect that'll be a bit of a loud show, but I'll be there. I'll be there pressing buttons. So come along to that as well, because it should be entertaining. Jaffe is coming on again, yes. So it's the third time that Jaffe's been on. The first two times, yeah, he's an entertaining fella, so it should be good. Should be good. For now, though, I'm going to go. Tomorrow I will hopefully be back on this channel streaming a bit of Scorn. I don't anticipate that I'm massively going to like Scorn, so I don't know if I'll stream it more than once, but we'll see how that goes. Thank you everyone for stopping by for the chat and all the rest of it, and I will see you at some point.
Game On Daily.